I am 91 years old, and I am sitting in a kitchen that used to be full of noise, full of life, full of people who called me Dad. Now the only sound is a clock on the wall. It doesn't know how to stop, and a refrigerator that hums like it's trying to keep me company. It's not doing a very good job. There's a stack of cards on the table in front of me. Birthday cards. Must be 30, maybe 40 of them, all tied together with a ribbon that used to be yellow. Now it's the color of something forgotten, something left in the sun too long, and then shoved in a drawer where nobody looks. My hands are shaking as I untie it. They always shake now. That's what 91 gives you. Hands that can't hold anything steady. Not a cup, not a pen. Not the things you should have held on to 60 years ago. These cards smell like dust and old vanilla, like the back of a closet where memories go to rot. Some of them are yellowed at the edges, brittle, like they'd crumble if you pressed too hard. Some of them are still crisp, still sealed, never opened. You want to know why they were never opened? Because they were never given. I bought them. Year after year after year, I bought birthday cards for my children, and I never gave them. Some of them I never even wrote in. I told myself I'd do it tomorrow. I told myself there'd be time. I need you to hear me when I say this. Everything I gave, every hour I bled for them, every sacrifice I made in their name, they never even felt it. Not once. And that is not their fault. That is mine. Let me tell you how a man erases himself from his own family. I was 32 years old and I was invincible. You couldn't tell me a damn thing. I had a suit that smelled like leather and ambition, a briefcase that clicked open like it meant business, and a belief that burned in my chest like gospel truth. The belief was simple. Sacrifice is love. The more you give up, the more you work, the more you bleed, the more they'll know you love them. That was the lie, and I swallowed it whole. I worked double shifts at the plant. 16-hour days where the machine screamed so loud you couldn't hear yourself think, and the air tasted like metal and grease. I worked holidays. I worked weekends. I worked my son's first steps and my daughter's first words. I wasn't there for any of it, but I told myself it didn't matter because I was providing. I was building something. I was giving them a life. You know what I was really doing? I was giving them a house with a ghost in it, a man-shaped hole at the dinner table that they learned to eat around. I used to stop at gas stations at midnight on the way home from a shift. The fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of stale coffee and gasoline. I'd stand in front of that little card rack, the one that spins, and I'd pick out birthday cards for my kids. Beautiful ones, the kind with glitter and animals and little poems inside that someone else wrote because I sure as hell didn't know how to say it myself. I'd tuck them into my coat pocket and I'd think, tomorrow I'll sit down and write something real in this, something they'll keep forever. Tomorrow. That word has robbed me of more than any thief ever could. I'd deposit my paycheck on Friday mornings and feel like a king. I'd look at that number and think, this is what a good father does. This is proof. Meanwhile, 6 miles away, my kids were blowing out candles on a cake, and the chair at the head of the table was empty. Again. My wife stopped setting a place for me after a while. Can you blame her? You stop expecting a man to show up. Eventually, you stop noticing he's gone. I was building a house. I was not building a home. There is a difference that took me 60 years to understand, and by then the house was paid off and completely empty. Now let me tell you about the night that broke me, the night I understood what I'd done. And I need to slow down here because this part deserves to be felt the way I felt it. In the bones, in the silence, in the long, terrible quiet that follows a truth you can't take back. It was Thanksgiving, 15 years ago. I was 76, and I had just come from the shop because even at 76, I didn't know how to stop working. My hands smelled like engine grease. I could feel it in the creases of my knuckles, dark lines that soap never fully reached. I'd stopped at a bakery, one of those places with the bell above the door, and I bought a store-bought pie. Pecan. I remember thinking she used to love Pecan, my daughter, when she was small. I didn't know if she still did. That thought should have broken me right there, but I pushed it down. I was good at pushing things down. A lifetime of practice. I drove to her house. The neighborhood was nice. Tree-lined street, porch lights glowing warm in the November dark. I could see through the front window. The family was inside. Her family. Her husband, her kids. My grandchildren that I could count on one hand the number of times I'd held. They were clearing the table, plates being stacked, glasses gathered. The meal was already over. I knocked on the door. It took a minute for someone to answer, and in that minute I stood on that porch, holding a pecan pie in the cold, and I could hear laughter inside. Laughter I wasn't part of. Laughter that didn't need me. My daughter opened the door. She was wearing an apron, and her hair was pulled back, and she looked so much like her mother that for a second I lost my breath. She looked at me, and here's the part that I will carry to my grave. She didn't look angry. She didn't look hurt. She didn't look disappointed. She looked like someone who had just been told it might rain later. Mild, indifferent. Like my presence at Thanksgiving was roughly as significant as a weather report. She said, "Oh, I didn't think you were coming." Not, "Where have you been?" Not, "We missed you." Not even, "You're late." Just, "Oh, I didn't think you were coming." As if whether I came or not was a coin flip that didn't much matter either way. I stepped inside. The house smelled like turkey and cinnamon and something sweet baking in the oven, and none of those smells were for me. I walked past the hallway and there were photographs on the wall, dozens of them. Family vacations at the beach, gap-toothed school portraits, Christmas mornings with wrapping paper everywhere, a graduation where my daughter wore a blue cap and the proudest smile I'd ever seen on a human face. I looked at every single photograph, and I was not in a single one, not one. I stood there in that hallway, holding that pie, and the air left my lungs like someone had reached inside my chest and squeezed. 60 years of work, 60 years of sacrifice, 60 years of telling myself they'd understand someday. And there was the evidence, framed and hanging on the wall. I had not been present for any of the moments that mattered, and because I wasn't present, I didn't exist. Not in the photos, not in the memories, not in any of the stories they'd someday tell their own children. Then a small voice came from the kitchen, a grandchild. Couldn't have been more than 5 or 6. I heard the little voice ask, clear as a church bell in an empty field, "Mommy, who's that man?" The silence that followed that question, I have never known a silence like it. It was the kind of silence that has weight. It pressed down on my shoulders and into my chest. Nobody answered the child. Not right away. The dishes clinked in the sink. Someone turned on the faucet. The moment passed like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. That child did not know me. My own grandchild looked at me like I was a stranger who had wandered in from the cold. And the worst part, the part that I replay in my mind at 3 in the morning when the house is dark and the clock is ticking, is that the child was right. I was a stranger. I had chosen to be a stranger. I just hadn't known I was choosing it at the time. I set the pie on the counter. I don't remember if anyone ate it. I drove home in the dark, and I didn't turn on the radio. I just let the silence sit with me, because the silence was honest, and I hadn't been honest with myself in decades. That was 15 years ago. And every day since has been a lesson in what it costs to learn the truth too late. Now I sit in this kitchen, one plate in the cabinet, one cup by the sink, one chair at the table. Everything in this house is measured in ones. There used to be fives. 5 plates, 5 cups, 5 chairs, 5 voices bouncing off these walls so loud you'd want to step outside just to hear yourself think. I would give everything I have to hear that noise again. Everything. But noise doesn't come back to a house that chose silence. I spread the cards out on the table. I do this sometimes. I don't know why. Maybe I'm punishing myself. Maybe I'm looking for something I missed. There's one that says, "Happy 7th birthday, son," on the front. Blue letters with a cartoon rocket ship. I open it. It's blank inside. Not a single word. I bought this card 20-some years after he turned 7 because I'd missed the real one, and I thought maybe I'd give it to him as a joke, a way to say I'm sorry without saying I'm sorry. But I never wrote in it, and I never gave it. Here's another one. To my little girl on her sweet 16. Pink envelope. It's still sealed. The stamp on the back was never even licked. She's 58 years old now. She turned 16 in a house where I paid the mortgage and missed the party. I don't know what she wore. I don't know if she danced. I don't know if she looked at the door and wondered if her father would walk through it. I suspect she didn't. I suspect she'd stopped wondering long before 16. Each card on this table is a ghost, a haunting in paper and ink. Each one represents a moment I said I'd show up for, a moment I chose work over, a moment that came and went and took a piece of my children's memory of me with it. You do that enough times and there's nothing left. You're not a father anymore. You're a name on a check. You're the answer to a question nobody asks. The phone on the wall hasn't rung in 3 weeks. I know because I count. I brew coffee every morning, enough for one, and the smell of it fills this kitchen like a small mercy. Sometimes I pour a second cup out of habit, and then I stare at it sitting there on the counter, steaming, going cold, with nobody to drink it. The faded ribbon sits on the table, and I tie the cards back up because there's nothing else to hold together in this house. That ribbon is it. That ribbon is the last thing keeping anything in my life bound to anything else. Now I want to talk to you. Yes, you watching this right now. You with the phone in your hand, the screen glowing on your face at 11 o'clock at night. Your kid is in the next room. Maybe they're asleep. Maybe they're still awake, waiting for you to come in and say goodnight. And you're here, listening to an old man talk about birthday cards. Put the phone down. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Put it down. Go into that room, sit on the edge of that bed, say the thing you think you'll say tomorrow, because tomorrow is a thief, and I am his evidence. You think you're sacrificing for them. You think those extra hours, that overtime, that grind you're so proud of, you think they feel that? They don't. I promise you on everything I've lost, they do not feel it. You know what they feel? The empty chair. That's it. That is your legacy if you don't change right now. Not the paycheck, not the house, not the car in the driveway. The chair, the empty chair at the table where you were supposed to be. You're not showing love by being exhausted. You're showing absence. And absence doesn't read as sacrifice to a child. Absence reads as, I wasn't important enough for you to stay. I'm holding a birthday card right now. It's blank inside. This is what your sacrifice looks like to your children. This is what they'll find someday when you're gone. Not a love letter, not a memory, just an empty card from someone who meant to write something but never did. Write in the card, show up to the dinner, be in the photograph, say the thing out loud with your voice, in the room, where they can hear it and feel your hand on their shoulder when you say it. Stop building the house, build the home. They won't remember what you provided. I need you to hear that. They will not remember a single dollar, but they will remember the chair that was empty. They will remember the door that didn't open. They will remember the silence where your voice should have been. I'm 91 years old, and I have a stack of cards that prove I love my children. But my children don't know that, because love that isn't felt isn't love. It's just intention, and you can't hold intention. You can't frame it on a wall. You can't blow out candles with it. Go be in the room, right now, tonight, while there's still a room that wants you in it.